I'd like to talk about It's Not Your Fault. But before we do that, I would like to introduce myself. Hi, I am Ghazala at the Heart and Soul Cafe. If you've been here before, thank you so much for coming back. And if you're here for the first time, you're very, very welcome. Now, it's not your fault. Those of you who have watched some of my videos will probably know that I very sadly lost my son around 4 years and 3 months ago. I have been volunteering for the last 3.5 years with a charity where I counsel, befriend, and support women who have also experienced child loss, sometimes other losses, but mainly child loss. And something that comes up again and again and again, and I have spoken about this in a previous video, but it's something that comes up again and again and again, and I was wanting to just cover another video on this topic. Now, it's a natural response to feel guilt after the loss of a loved one. It's a natural it's a part of grieving, and grieving is a natural response to loss, okay? And there's certain stages of grieving and certain parts, and we can talk about that. But guilt is something that many of us feel. What if I had done this, and what if if only I had, and if only I hadn't, let him or her go out that day, or if only I had dropped them off myself, if only I had stopped them from doing this or doing, it can go on and on and on. And I know that, and I understand that, because I experienced that myself after losing my son. It was very much, didn't I notice that there was, something not quite right in his childhood, that led to him, so there's all sorts of things that we can sort of do, and we can almost beat ourselves up about it. And I think really that's what I'm getting at here. What's a natural response, and what are natural sort of processes of grieving, and when does it become sort of damaging? And so what I find is, when I'm counselling, supporting women, I'm listening to women who are talking about their loss. Yes, you are always, as a mother, because it's a natural instinct, isn't it, to look after your child, to do everything that you can to make sure that your child survives. So it's gone against that. And losing a child is against the natural order of things anyway, isn't it? Because you expect your child to outlive you as a parent. So when it goes the other way, this is something that seems very, very unnatural, and that's why losing a child is probably the hardest, I would say, probably the hardest loss a person can experience, I would say. Some of you may not agree with that, but please comment. So I think feeling that, yes, I am at fault here, is a natural thing. But I would say that if you can get practicing and into a habit of stepping outside of yourself and looking at where you are at in your grief, on a daily basis. And I do this first thing in the morning. I sort of check in on myself and check in on with my grief, and sort of ask myself, where am I at? That would be the time where I might realize that I really am putting myself, holding myself up so in fault of my son's death. And is it actually my fault? Is it my fault? And this is sort of times when you would ask yourself that question. Is it my fault? Was there anything that I could have done? And if I knew, and if there was something that I could have done, I would have absolutely have done it. Yeah. And then when I realized that it just wasn't in my hands. There wasn't anything that I could have done. I had no control over this. So, we can realize that. And when we realize that, we sort of come to a kind of peaceful space, I would say. And I had to make peace with that, because my son, passed away due to a cardiac arrest. He was diagnosed with a heart condition 6 months prior to him passing away. And, although sometimes I hold, people in the medical profession to fault, I sort of say, well, why didn't you intervene earlier? Why didn't you, if there was some sort of treatment that he was going to have, why didn't he have that treatment earlier on? Why was it left? And then sadly, he had a cardiac arrest. And I can think, was there any time in his childhood where, I noticed that he was out of breath, or, that he was maybe going blue around his mouth, or something that he just sort of told me that, he's getting out of breath, and he hasn't really, done anything really very physical. And why is he out? There wasn't even one moment ever me thinking, oh, this doesn't seem right. There's something not quite right here. Not once. And then, after my son sadly passed away, we, myself, my husband, my 2 daughters were tested to sort of, see whether anyone else in the family had, any kind of predisposition to this heart condition. Thankfully, we don't, which means that it wasn't really hereditary. It wasn't passed down from myself or my husband, possibly. So you think, okay, well, this is just something that happened. I have notions, why I think, it might have happened. Which I could share. Let's share. I feel that he got COVID the first time around, 2019. I think it was, 2020. I think he got COVID. And I think sometimes COVID has affected people in different ways. I feel that it affected his heart, because I feel that there's a reason for that as well, because otherwise he was such a fit and healthy young man. He was 22, 6'2", well built, was going to the gym and looking after himself. So he didn't look as if, having a heart condition would be anything. You wouldn't relate that to him at all. You wouldn't, in 100 years, relate that to him. So, I think, the virus maybe affected his heart muscle. This is my notion. I don't know. Because he did experience anxiety in his teenage years, quite extreme anxiety and depression sometimes. And I feel that his anxiety had an effect on his heart, sort of maybe, because those of you who, experience anxiety know that, it can sort of send your heart racing. And if it's sending your heart racing, then possibly it's maybe harming your heart muscle. And then the virus possibly just affected that weaker part that is, a body. That's my notion, and I don't know. And I'll never know. Why he got this diagnosis, why this happened to him. But the thing is, I don't know. I'll never know. And I've just said that. So there's not really any, it's not going to be beneficial to anybody for me to sort of, to dwell in that, to sort of say, well, what if I had done this, and what if I had done that, and what if I put my foot down when he was in hospital at that time, and what if I'd noticed, and if I hadn't, I could go on and on and on. And what good would it do? I can't bring him back. If there was anything that I could do to bring him back, I would do it. If I had to go to the ends of the earth, I would do that. If I'd have to, I don't know, sacrifice my limbs, I would do that. To get my son back, I would do anything. But I know I can't. I know I can't get him back. So what do? I look at, what can I do now? what can I do now to help myself, to get myself through this life, or to help him if there's anything that I can do in his honor. And that is the road I am on. That's why I started up a charity in his name. That's why I volunteer for another charity where I support and counsel women who've experienced loss, and there's other projects that I'm sort of involved with. So my message to you is, yes, it's a natural response to blame yourself, that put yourself at fault, but please don't dwell in it. Please don't get stuck in that place, because it's not going to help you. It's certainly not going to help the person that you've lost. It's not going to help the people that love you, that you love around you. It's not actually going to have any kind of positive effect on anybody to dwell in it. I know that there'll be times when there'll be times when I still, put myself to fault, hold myself accountable for, maybe I should have done this and maybe should have done that. As a mother, as a parent, I should have, I carried out CPR on my son, tried to bring him back. I failed. I didn't bring him back. But I did my best. I know that I did my best. But at the same time, I knew that I'd lost him. And that was my gut feeling. So, if I was to sit in a darkened room blaming myself for the rest of my life, that wouldn't bring him back. It would have a detrimental effect on my health. So I wouldn't be able to do the things that I'm doing. And if I help one person, in my counseling or during these videos, if I just help one person, that is job done. If I help more, then that is all a bonus. So that's it, really. That's it. Blaming ourselves is, as I say, is a natural response, that you might feel that you are, at fault there. But if you really think about it, most of the time, 99.9999% of the time, we are not at fault for the reason why our loved one has passed away. So we need to cut ourselves some slack. We need to be gentle with ourselves. We need to be good to ourselves and try and find a way to turn this negative into a positive somehow. We need to find a way to do that. I hope you found the content of this video helpful. Please do share, subscribe, please comment, please like. Thank you for watching this video. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Until then, look after your hearts and souls. Thank you.